Hello, everyone. It is such a delight to be talking to you from Texas. And I hope that I can say some things that are beneficial to you in developing your businesses, in your own personal development, in your success with this fantastic vehicle that I have been involved with since the beginning. I sold the very first product ever purchased by anybody in late 1993 that was delivered in 1994, which is our official beginning. It occurred to me while I was preparing these comments that I was developed myself, that I was molded, and so were many of you in preparation for your purpose that you could manifest in the Mannatech program. I really feel like many things that occurred in my history had a lot to do with the fact that I was receptive to Mannatech, that I jumped into Mannatech wholeheartedly. So I want to tell you about that. And I think that many of you will be able to relate with your own personal history of how things occurred with you and led you to this vehicle. I know that there are many people watching this right now that know that this is the fulfillment of their purpose in life. I grew up in San Antonio, Texas, in a very humble household, in a household that believed in humility. We were what was called blue collar, and it was very common in my household and many of the households of the friends that I associated with to say, we can't afford. And we almost said it as if it was a part of our claim to fame. We were almost proud that we were functioning just fine, making it through life, happy as could be, and we couldn't afford much of anything. We were just making it. Now, as I was going through my learning process as a young person, I didn't particularly fit with that being proud of I can't afford. And I was known to challenge that. When I heard it from anybody, I would say, why do you say that? Or why do we say that? Or why is that so? When there are other people that can afford, what's different about us? Why can we not afford? I didn't realize until I was a little ways into my youth that there were people that could afford and had done certain things to make themselves to be in a position where they could afford. And they called it ambition. And so I found out that I was ambitious at a young age. I've been ambitious all of my life. I've had some people that think that's a weakness in me. I personally think that it's a strength in me. I think that it's a strength in many of you. And I think that probably if you're like me, there have been people in your life that have made you feel somewhat guilty for being ambitious. And I've chosen a long time ago to not feel guilty about that, as long as with my successes, I help extend that success to other people. In that household that didn't have very much, we did have a level of work ethic. I had chores from a very young age. I understood that chores were of value, not just to accomplish something, but for the development of my character. I had that developed even more in church. My family was in church every time church opened. I loved what I was learning there. I loved the philosophy that I gained from trying to do the right thing throughout your life. One of the first words that I really learned what it meant and to appreciate it was the word wholesome. It's still probably in the top 3 or 4 of my favorite words. I love people that are wholesome and want to be wholesome. And I feel like that upbringing is something that helped me be attracted to Mannatech, and something that had the purpose, the capability, the gifts, if you will, of Mannatech. I decided I wanted a business at a very young age. So I gained values from the work ethic of my family. I gained values from church. And then I really gained some values as a young entrepreneur. On a very early Saturday morning, I was at a donut shop one of the health food restaurants that my father loved to go to. And I started questioning the owner of that shop. Why did you start this? Why are you in business for yourself? What time do you start? What time do you get off? Is your life more valuable because you do this business? Do you like relating to people? Do you like talking to all of the customers that come in? In a very short period of time, he decided to join my dad and I, and my dad thought that I was interrupting his work day. So he apologized for me. And this gentleman said, hey, please don't apologize. I have an affinity to work with people that are entrepreneurs. And I asked, what is an entrepreneur? And said, an entrepreneur is somebody that wants to be in business for themselves. They want to start new things. They want to be independent. They want to be in control. They want to be able to express their own initiative. They want to be able to work their own hours. They want to be able to learn new things. And I said, so that sounds like me. And I said, let me ask you something. Can you afford things? And he said, I'm doing extremely well financially. Yes. And I said, well, in my family, many people say frequently that they can't afford. And I don't particularly like those words. And he said, you are definitely ambitious and you are definitely entrepreneurial. Would you like to be in business with me? And I looked at my dad, and my dad said, well, let's hear what the man has to offer. And I could tell that my dad was going to have to be sold on this idea by this gentleman. And I said, well, let me hear and see if I can get my dad's approval. What he recommended was that I show up at his donut shop an hour before I had to get on a bus and to go to school. And I could walk door to door with donuts and see if people wanted to purchase them. He recommended that I sell those donuts for 10 cents each, and that I didn't have to pay for the donuts when I came to him to pick them up. I could return any donuts that I didn't sell back to him. But for everything that I sold for a dime, he wanted me to pay him a nickel. So if I picked up a dozen donuts and was able to get people to buy 12 of those donuts, then I could make 60 cents in a morning. Now, 60 cents an hour was a very good pay back in that particular time frame. That was a lot of years ago. In fact, for me to buy lunch in the cafeteria at school for the whole week only cost $1. So I could make 60 cents in an hour. I was thinking kind of small at the beginning, that I could probably sell a dozen of those donuts in an hour. And I found out that I could sell several dozen of those donuts during the course of that hour. And then I could sell even many more than that. I didn't have enough time to do it. So I started hiring other 6-year-olds and 7-year-olds. And I even set up a structure where I could make a small amount of money off of what they were making, so I could leverage their activities, much like multi-level marketing is. And some of the kids wanted to have their own subordinate people that delivered donuts and solicited new business. So I set up a structure for that. I ended up easily making $6 or $7 per day. And this is when I was 6, 7 years old. So I learned a lot about entrepreneurship. I learned that people would tell you they were showing up for work and they wouldn't. I learned that I had to keep figures on the income, on the dollars. I had some that I had to be concerned about whether or not they collected the monies properly, that they handled the donuts properly, that they didn't touch the donuts, that they were being healthy. I learned a whole lot about management. I learned a whole lot about structure of business. I learned about profit. And that was exciting. So that at a young age, I had the value given to me, if you will, as a gift from that gentleman that owned a donut shop. I found out that he owned many other businesses as well. And I loved sitting with him and getting him to explain what the other businesses were, how they functioned, why he had gotten into them, what drew him to those. And he loved educating me because he could tell that I was honeable, that I loved to learn. And I did very well for that with that business for quite some time. Something else occurred to me at about the same time. The church that I was going to was supporting an orphanage. That orphanage had many, many kids who had lost their parents through one way or another, and people that ran the orphanage were giving them just as much love and care and discipline as they would get from a parent. And the youth of my church interfaced with the youth of that orphanage. So I gained a love and a respect for orphanages. Can you imagine how that played in to me being involved with Mannatech a little bit later on when we got involved in Mission 5 Million? I'll try to talk to you a little bit about that as we go. So I had the value of learning what an orphanage was about and the giving spirit that people had. I had the value that came from going to church on a regular basis and building my character philosophically. I had the value of work ethic. All of these things, even at a young age, are leading me towards Mannatech, especially the entrepreneurial part, especially the part that I was able to honor a level of ambition and start learning what ambition was all about. At the same time that I was doing all of that, I had decided that I wanted to be a good student. Now, there were other kids around me that I loved and I played with, and some that worked for me, and education was not important to them. And I didn't understand that. I did what I could to get it across to them that them getting an education was going to be of greater value to them as time went on. But for me personally, I learned the value of gaining education, of learning, being disciplined in my classes. I studied. I helped other people study. I mentored. At a young age, I loved being a tutor. I think there's a whole lot of that involved in network marketing. There's a whole lot of that involved in the successes that each of you are having right now with your businesses, because you're willing to study, you're willing to know your products, you're willing to teach that to other people. Not only are you willing, but you delight in that, and you delight in the successes of other people, especially those that you had something to do with educating those people. Now, I'm telling you all of this because I know that many of you relate to what I'm saying. Those of you that have been involved with Mannatech for a long time know that there were some values that you developed before you got involved with Mannatech. And then Mannatech allowed you to develop those values to an even greater extent than what you have before. For those of you that are new to Mannatech, you know that some of these values were developed in you at a young age too. When you were going to school, when you were growing up, when you were starting to interface with other people, whether or not it was work or whether or not it was play. Now, all of the people that I had involved with me in the donut business also came along with me when we started doing yards. We just called it mowing and edging. Today they call it landscaping, but for us, you couldn't call us landscapers because we didn't know much of anything except for mowing and edging. But we found out that most people did not want to mow and edge their yards. They were willing to pay for someone else to come and do that. And I started putting an awful lot of kids to work mowing and edging yards, so I leveraged that as well. Found out that most people just wanted to make an extra $20, $25 a week. And some of them wanted to make more than that. And some of them wanted to learn how to be leaders. Some of them I used in a capacity where they could keep in charge of several people. And I leveraged that as well. From the same kind of structure that I set up for income, I was able to do that in my yard mowing business. I think it's so funny when people think that network marketing is some kind of a strange beast. When I see network marketing in pretty much every business that's out there, If someone is selling chairs, there are a number of people that are involved in the compensation that's paid when that chair is sold. You have someone that directly represents the product to someone. You have someone that is their supervisor. You have someone that owns the store. You have someone that's the wholesaler. You have someone that manufactures the chair. There's always a bunch of people that are in the line of compensation when anything moves. Network marketing just leaves out the advertisers. Networkers have to represent. The companies support everything else. The companies maintain inventory, they do the shipping, they do the marketing, they do the licensing, they do the registration of the method of business or the products. They make sure that all health concerns are taken care of. Networking has got to be the fairest and best form of being in business for yourself, where you, as the owner of the business, the CEO of that business, you have to represent the product. You have to talk. You have to bring people into the funnel. You have to get people involved in the product, hopefully on an ongoing business. But my yard business, my mowing and edging business, taught me much, much more about the whole networking function. There were a lot of values in that. And there were values to previous things that I had added value to. So I'm putting together a lot of different values for my life. And of course, I realize now that what was happening is I was being molded to be able to be involved in something that I've now been involved with for 27 years, to take advantage of the values that I'd already learned. And I could hone those values. I could make them even better. I could add to them. Now, since we're talking about all values and strengths, I want you to know that I had weaknesses as well. And some of those weaknesses I kept well into my life, but I found a way to mask those weaknesses as well, that I'll talk about in just a minute. I went on to get a degree in biology and chemistry. And to get education at the college level for my family was relatively unheard of. I know of one person in all of my family on either side who had even gone to college, but not gotten a degree, not stuck with it. And I did. In college, I really picked up on two new values, more so than I ever had done before. I got to see what science was really about, what the human body was really all about, what biology was about, what biochemistry was all about, in particular with the human body. And I also really got involved with speech. In every possibility that I could, I put myself in front of an audience in speech classes, in fraternity or sorority, MC values, and some way or another, I wanted to get better and better at giving a logical presentation in front of a group. And then I wanted to get better at it with individuals. So the two values that I really developed while I was in college was a knowledge of science, a love of science, and a knowledge of speaking and a love of speaking. Next value that came into my life. Remember, folks, this history is mine, but it really was preparing me for what was my mission in life, which is today, has been for 27 years, and will be until I exit this planet. My mission is Mannatech and what Mannatech can provide. And I want to lead you in this as how important that value is for your future as well. Not just the past and not just history, but also future. From college, I got drafted into combat. There's nothing more serious than combat. I was a helicopter pilot in Vietnam. And I thought, well, you're not going to be able to exercise your entrepreneurial skills too much during this particular phase of your life. But I did. Even though I was in combat, I learned an awful lot of discipline. I learned not to make a mountain out of a molehill. I think that so many people make challenges, problems that are in their life so big that they just don't feel like it's possible that they can succeed at all. They must think that everything has got to be in place in order for them to be able to accomplish their day-to-day activities. As an example, some of the challenges that are going on right now with Mannatech is getting inventory. The suppliers are not getting their product. The cost of shipping has gone up so much. The cost of products have gone up so much. There are so many people that think, well, I just cannot function until all of those things are in place. But you don't have that option in combat. In combat, you must go with what you have at that moment, or you're going to perish. And if you're in a leadership position like I was, you may very well cause some other people to perish as well. So I developed an attitude of not making a mountain out of a molehill, not making a challenge that isn't really serious something that many people deem to be life-threatening. It's not life-threatening for a lot of things that we're dealing with in challenges today. We just have to get through those challenges. There's an old saying that when the going gets tough, the tough get going. Or things like, if it's too hot in the kitchen, then you want to get out of the kitchen rather than staying with that particular difficulty and seeing it through. So we're in a position with Mannatech now, just like many people are in many activities in the world, of having to deal with a set of challenges. I promise you, those challenges are not going to defeat me. They're not going to defeat many of you. It is developing character. It's showing you that we can get past challenges. In Vietnam, I had to train people to handle emergency procedures. If you didn't know how to handle an aircraft when it got a bullet through the engine, you weren't going to be able to set that aircraft down safely. I found out that when our instructor pilots were working with people, that usually people did not do auto rotations well the first time. So the instructor pilot would continue doing it with them until they did a good one. In the real life situation, you don't get a do-over. You don't get a second time. So I had the instructor pilots work with people until they were able to, the very first time, handle a tail rotor failure, handle an auto rotation, handle a hydraulic problem, any kind of emergency procedures that they might encounter. I could not believe how many people came to me, grown men with tears in their eyes, after successfully handling an emergency, because I had insisted that they learn it so well that they could always accomplish it from the beginning. It gave them a level of confidence and it saved many lives. Now, here's an analogy some people disagree with. I think that I'm saving people's lives today with the Mannatech program in a number of different ways, with teaching them to treat all challenges as just a part of life and get past those. It doesn't matter how many times you're knocked down. It matters how many times you get up and keep going. From Vietnam, I got into the vending business. So what was the value I learned from the vending business? I learned taking advantage of trends. That was a massive trend because I got involved in something that had a big growth, a big trend push. I did extremely well financially. I bought the very first 46 Pac-Man machines ever made because no other vendor in the whole country thought it was a good game. So I bought them all at a discounted price because no one else wanted them. And the amount of money that I made with those machines, as well as many others, I could name machine after machine after machine. I developed a very large video game machine, and I had all the other kind of coin-operated game machines all over the Dallas-Fort Worth area, a very successful company. During the time that I was learning that value of a trend, a new trend was presented to me. It was network marketing. And I started realizing that networking allowed you to have a level of leverage like I had developed in businesses in the past. And so I got involved and I found a company that I did extremely well with. And because their product was not proprietary, that company did not make it. So I developed a great income, but it went away. So from then on, I said, okay, networking is good. There's nothing bad about networking. I just want to make sure that I'm involved with a product that is proprietary. That's one of the reasons why I love Mannatech today. Mannatech has well over 100 patents. We have proprietary products. We have products that we developed. We have products that we know that we own. And because of that, the first year in business, when we started, we did $10 million in business. And the second, we did 30. And the third, we did 90. And about that time, we were adding Australia to the mix. Australia was really the first country that we added that was outside of North America. We had gotten into Canada before, but then Australia was next. What a smart move that was on our part, because so many fantastic leaders came into our mix that helped us open up other countries. Many, many people in Australia helped us open up Japan. Of course, New Zealand and Singapore that are part of your business, but outside of that, in Japan, in South Korea, in Taiwan, in England. And I want to say to all of you that did that, I appreciate you so much. And I saw a level of leadership with Australians that was fantastic. I saw people like Rodney Gilchrist and James Han, and I hate to start mentioning names because so many were involved. And I saw people like Lowell Thomas from the US that spent so much time there and developed so much. And people like Anita Rabutka. We had an awful lot of Americans that came to Australia and spent a great deal of time. Greg Ross was one of those people. I probably shouldn't mention names of the people that came to Australia either, because there were so many of them that I appreciate so much. But when Mannatech was introduced to me, I had a degree in biology and chemistry. I had an interest in so many of the values that were network marketing. I had a real strong interest in the whole business model of network marketing. I was definitely an entrepreneur. I definitely liked proprietary stuff. And so to prove that the product really worked, I did something very few other people have done. I called my health professional. I told them what I was looking at. I told them that I wanted a full physical and that I was going to start consuming the products, and that in 2 months I was going to come take another full physical. And I wanted to see if I could prove that the product really made a difference in me. I had been a pilot. I had class 1 physical many, many years in a row that I was able to compare to a physical 2 months after taking the product, then 4 months after the product, then taking 6 months after taking the product. So that's the reason I think why, with all the values that had come into my life and with the provability of the product, that we were able to do $10 million in business the first year. Now, that first year, we didn't have the laboratory that we have today of renown. That came a little later. That just made us that much better. We didn't have any of the patents yet. Those patents started flowing. We're still working on that. We're still working on developing new products and developing new patents. And the history of my time with Mannatech and its evolving into the M5M program has just been so valuable, not just to me, but many of you that are watching this right now, many of you that are brand new to this. You already know that there's incredible value. This is a 27-year-old company now. I decided a long time ago that I didn't want anything to do with brand new network marketing companies. It is too difficult to make one of these businesses last and last and last. And I definitely don't want to be involved with something that isn't proprietary. I also like a company that is very stable. This company has virtually no debt, and it's always been that way. We have extra cash in our coffers that we can use for research and development. We've spent many, many millions of dollars in research and development. I think that values all coming together, that have been presented to me as I was growing up have also been presented to you. When you have those kind of values, you want your purpose to really be fulfilled. And I believe that Mannatech has been a gift to many, many people that have given them better health, given them better finances, given them much better purpose. All of the values that you develop during the course of your life that bring you up to your introduction in Mannatech, whether it was years ago or it's brand new, are things that we will help you grow. We will help you personally develop those values to a greater extent because of the value of this product line, because of the value of our management. Our CEO, Al Bala, I deem to be the best CEO in the industry. Landon Frederick is an incredible leader. Chris Simon's an incredible leader. Our CFO is an incredible leader. Our lead attorney is we've got such incredible staff. So we have a staff that masks the weaknesses. Okay, I told you about the values and the strengths. I'll tell you about some of my weaknesses. I am not a good organizer. I don't have to be a good organizer when I have someone that will support me, like the support mechanism that occurs in Mannatech. I am not good at technology. In this particular taping that's being done right now, I have no idea how all of this is working, but my son Kevin does. My son Kevin here's Kevin. Kevin is my director right now. Thank you for Kevin for coming and saying hi. He's got appropriate lighting. He's got a board where I can have notes to keep up with what I'm saying and a special speaker. And I love it that there are so many people in Mannatech that will cover for my weaknesses. While I'm talking about covering for weaknesses, I would really be amiss if I didn't talk about my wife. My wife is so good at covering for my weaknesses, and I really think that God blessed me immensely when he brought her into my life. I have many leaders in Mannatech that do things in my team, if you will, that I don't do well. I use David Wood a lot. I use Yvonne Richardson a lot. I use a whole bunch of my leaders a lot to mask for my weaknesses. You can do the same thing. In this business for yourself model with Mannatech, you can use your strengths, you can use your values, you can develop your values to an even greater extent, and then you can rely on the company to do many of the things for you that are your weaknesses. You can incorporate people in your life that have strengths that you don't have. You can become highly technical if you want to by just incorporating the people in your life that are already highly technical. I think it's fantastic that Mannatech has been able to have a better growth and development even during these hard times, because we can do business from home. We can do business on our computer. We can do business on our phone. There are so many stories around the world of people that were making a part-time income with Mannatech when all of this mess started a year and a half ago. And today, because they took their businesses home and started developing their Mannatech business, are making a full-time income with Mannatech. And they know that they can get a better grip on life. To me, GRIP stands for a growing, recurring income potential. That's what I have been able to get involved with finances. Without even concentrating on the finance part, I have been able to get a grip on life, and I've been able to give that grip to many other people. If you don't mind me plugging a book that Kevin and I wrote together, Get a Grip. It's available to you through Amazon. And I believe it tells the story well of how other people can get a grip on life. Take advantage of this valuable vehicle for improving the values that you already have and the values you want to gain, and become a part of this wonderful purpose that we call Mannatech.